3, 2, 1.
Okay, now today we're back. All right, we're back again behind the why. And as you can see, we're not in the studio, but we are still current, I hope. We're going to talk today about what makes America great.
I get that question often.
You know, I wore my MAGA hat a couple episodes ago. People were talking about, how could you wear that? As a black man, how could you wear that MAGA? Mm-hmm. And as one brother said to me, when was America ever great? And so I thought we would hit on some of those things today, so we can talk about what makes America great and when was she great. Now, I want to differentiate. I've never said and never will say that America was perfect.
Right.
But she has been great.
I had a conversation about that because inevitably in conversation, once people always start disagreeing politically, they always say, well, when was America ever great? Specifically for black people.
Especially for black people.
And I started listing some things that have happened, but then the same thing was brought back up again. Yeah, but slavery was legal. And I said, yes, and that was wrong. But it was abolished,
Yes,
and so I was like, so it was great when it was abolished. And so people just can't have that. I think it's hard to kind of come to that.
It's the idea. We used to always say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Exactly.
So we want to talk about that again. So it's a little bit off, but I think it feeds into today's topic or the current topics when we look at this social reconstruction that's trying to be forced down the throats of the American people. The left and the extreme left in particular are those who know they cannot win on the battlefield of ideas. They know that their ideas do not hold merit. They know that they can't achieve that. So the only way for them to get the type of America they want is to use backdoor approaches, half-truths, and lies.
And violence.
And violence to establish their type of America. But what the average American does not understand is that by giving into this sense of instant gratification, we're losing long-term greatness.
Right.
And we'll have a nation of people who will be utterly dependent. And here's the sad thing, is that the people who are trying to create this know what they're doing. And those who've gone before them did the same thing. We talked about a few, Hitler, Mussolini, and people like that, who thought to control the world and make the world one giant socialist government with them on top. And it's always about the elite. The elite will always be those who
they always remain
yes. They make rules that don't apply to us. I mean, I look at Obamacare, and how that had all those rules and restrictions, made hardships for average Americans. But how many of those who passed the law were affected by Obamacare?
0.
None of them.
It makes me think, even just recently, so George Floyd, it's really sad because his death, wrongful death, but it's been exploited right now.
Exploited.
And we're talking 7 funerals, posted on all the different, websites, every major news network.
Nancy Pelosi and was it Schumer?
Wearing their candy cloth. I know, but I was looking at that.
Do we even have to go there?
I know, no.
But
then all of these cultural appropriation.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh yeah. But all of these celebrities came to the funeral, and I saw someone post. They're like, They're like, just last week or last month. Sorry, they had a brother die.
Right.
And they were told they couldn't have a certain amount of people to the funeral. And so this woman is really mad. She's like, are you kidding me? She's like, I couldn't have people come. We couldn't grieve properly. And yet, all of a sudden, all these people, celebrities, coming to a funeral of a man they don't even know.
And it's okay. All of a sudden,
because
COVID-19 is gone.
Because the elite said it's okay.
Yeah, the elite, they put rules down and pick them up as it suits them.
And so for the common folk, we don't have that luxury. So you have people who couldn't have funerals.
I was talking about the governor of North Carolina, how they had put down this mandate. You could only meet, and so when churches couldn't meet, and you could only meet outdoors, and so the thing with was it 20 people or less, or 120, something similar, simple like that. And this one gentleman who owned this racetrack there said, bump that. And so he started having races, 2,000 crowds of 2,000 people or more. And the governor said, no, we're going to have you issue a citation. He goes, no, you can't do that. He goes, you open the state for everything else. And so the governor ordered the sheriff of the county to go down and cite this guy. And the guy came back with, this is a First Amendment issue. You allow those 15,000 people to march in protest. And the governor's response was, well, they're protesting. That's a First Amendment issue. And this guy says, well, everybody at the race is protesting. We're protesting against your rules. We think they're unconstitutional. He said, and
How about that?
plus, we're wearing masks and we're doing the temperature checks and everything else. He said, what did you require those people doing, the 15,000 people at the protest? And of course, there's no answer.
Right.
He just rolls up his sleeves and it's like, well, you're going to do what I tell you. Why? Because I said so.
Yeah.
And you look at that again and you go, since when was that the rule of law? One person sitting in the office can get to say, I said so, and you got to jump to it?
Right. Well, it's the same attitude we saw with Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago.
Oh, my gosh.
Because the phone call leaked. And one of her aldermen had a very legitimate concern because the city's being burned down.
It's burned down.
And so he's asking her, like, what are we going to do? We have no cops. You're not really putting forth the effort to keep our city safe. And her response was, next question. And he said, no.
I want to answer.
I want to answer. And then she says, I think you're full of,
Yeah, explicative. Yes.
And I was like, that's your response to a genuine concern from the people in your city?
That is the general response of an elitist.
Yeah, because that blew my mind.
I don't have to respond to you.
Yeah.
Why? Because I am who I am.
And so I'm just going to throw an insult at you. And I don't have to...
When you can't fight with ideas, you fight with slurs and slander. Right. So we get off topic, though, because there's just so much going on.
You know, it's not off topic, though. It all goes together. It's all one big train wreck right now.
Makes America great?
In this world, yeah.
What does make America great? I have to say this. And I don't want to stir up any trouble with anybody, YouTube or anybody else, but I have to say this. It is bizarre to me that all of a sudden all these black activist movies that show black victimization are all of a sudden being premiered
and free. When just a couple weeks ago you had to pay to rent it.
I was trying to get Malcolm X up last week or week before last, and you had to pay for it. Yep. So we were like, hey, we're gonna have a watch party. We're gonna rent Malcolm X and watch it. Next thing I know, Malcolm X is free.
I was like, I can save some money. It's free.
Now, what I really wish is that the average person would really read Malcolm X.
Right.
Watch what Malcolm X had to say. He is an example of what makes America great. Mm-hmm. He came out of prison system, a petty thief, went into the prison, a petty thief, came out a converted man, a Muslim, and began the rhetoric that we're so familiar with.
Right.
But then as he began to grow, he began to understand that this was a question of brotherhood. Mm-hmm. And it didn't matter what color your skin was. See, this is what people don't say. Right. Now, he still championed his own culture. He still championed his immediate family, the black man in America. But his became a question of the brotherhood of man. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're missing. Right. Even he, Malcolm X, who is the iconic, let's do violence, never said that. Mm-hmm. What he said was, in his famous speeches, by any means necessary, the black man needs to defend himself by any means necessary. He needs to establish his rights, but he never advocated straight out violence. Mm-hmm. And so now he wasn't opposed to it.
Right. But he never necessarily advocated.
Now, Dr. King's speech was the exact opposite. I was listening again, something I was really disappointed in with Martin Luther King Jr. III, when he said, my father said, the riot is the voice of the unheard. Mm-hmm. And I thought, why did he not give the full quote of his father? Because what his father actually said was, I don't care if 20 million Negroes were in favor of violence, I would stand against them and say they are wrong. That's what his father said. So I'm always leery about people who give snippets out of quotes like that. Why don't you give it in context? And so when we see that, I think again, what makes America great? Now, again, we're not preaching that America was ever perfect. We're not arguing that because of the simple fact that we know that wherever people are, there's imperfections.
Yep.
We're not going to argue that.
Yeah.
But what we will say is that because of the foundation, I think, led by God, inspired by God, in the creation of the Constitution, which is one of the most beautiful documents. Mm-hmm. And I would challenge that most people have never read it.
That's one thing I am so thankful for. The school I went to, elementary, middle, and high school, is a charter school. But it was great education. Mm-hmm. And I remember in 8th grade, we were required to read the Constitution. And we had to memorize the amendments. I'm like, who does that? But they made us, you know? And I'm so thankful for that because...
But now, when we took you back east and we went to Abraham Lincoln's tomb and to his home and to the museum, were you not able to appreciate that history
Well, of course,
more,
because
knowing what was happening at the time?
Yeah, because when I was a child, we went when I was like middle school. Middle school, so around the same time. And because then you know where it came from and you see it in context, truly. Right. And that's the problem. I was listening to talk radio this morning, and it was Rush Limbaugh, but he had someone guest on there.
Right.
And they brought up this whole concept that right now, we talked this before on the show, but like the left always talks about empathy. And especially right now, it's coming out a lot. All over social media, people saying, well, you need to be empathetic and all this. You need to feel this, telling white people, be empathetic. Imagine if you were in these shoes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Just listening to all this rhetoric, right? But one thing he said is, he's like, they champion empathy, but they're really not empathetic.
No.
They're tearing down statues of, even, they were in the UK, they were destroying a Abe Lincoln statue, okay? Because Black Lives Matter's working there too.
Right.
And the guy's making the point is, he said, they're not empathetic because they're not willing to understand what Abe Lincoln did.
Right. They're not even trying.
Not even trying. And, him sitting in the Oval Office during that time, figuring out what he's going to do, and knowing that it's going to cause a civil war. Mm-hmm. It's like, put yourself in those shoes, right? Knowing. But they're just focusing on little things he said out of context and all the... I'm like, oh my word.
And here was a man willing to sign his name to... Talk about what makes America great. Here's a man who's willing to sign his name to a document that will initiate a civil war.
Right.
Whose primary purpose was what? To free the black man in America. If we weren't a great nation, that would not be allowed.
That would not be allowed.
You wouldn't have no recourse.
Right.
You would not have the occasion of a former slave, Frederick Douglass, to be in the White House having conversation with the President of the United States, offering assistance and ideas on how that president could assist the black man in America.
And guess what? Here's what I love too. Because people talk about how Trump's this racist, blah, blah. I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not buying it. Because just the other day, he had a round table, and he had black people come into the Oval, or not the Oval Office, but one of the rooms in the White House just to talk about these issues that are happening.
Right.
Some of them are pastors, some like online influencers. But he was listening to them to hear where they're coming from. And you can tell, like, he really wants to do well. Why? He is a businessman. I think that has to, he doesn't want to fail.
Succeeds, yes. Business is all about success.
But just the fact that he's even entertaining their audience. This isn't like he just did it. He's been doing this his whole presidency.
Right.
And he's making real change. And even some of the people in there told him, thank you, Mr. President, because you have, I think one of the guys said that you've been the best thing for the black community in how many years?
And when we think about, this is the problem. This is the problem we run into, is that we get stuck with this idea that, especially now in the light of Black Lives Matter, you have to support Black Lives Matter. And as I had a conversation with some people we know, and I said to them, I can be pro-black without being pro-Black Lives Matters, because I don't believe Black Lives Matter is pro-black.
It's not.
If you look at their founding statements, you find out they're not about being pro-black.
They're not.
And so they use the black victimization to further their platform. That's what they're doing. They're doing the same thing to us now that the Democrat Party has done to us for the last 300 years. They're using blacks to further their own platform, and that's all they're doing. It's just another form of elitism. Yep. That's all it is. You have a few people who are using the masses to establish themselves. And so when we start thinking about it, and I went through this because I've been challenged on this a number of times. When was America ever great? I just want to list a couple of these things because I found out some stuff, and I want to read them to you. I found out some names. I knew some stuff just from my own study, but I found out some things I did not know. I asked you the question, who was the first black millionaire?
Right. And what I said was, what came to my mind was the first female black millionaire, which was Madam C.J. Walker, to my knowledge.
Right.
Which also, I just love that fact, because when you study critical race theory, I'm like, she would have been impossible. It wouldn't be possible if white supremacy was keeping her down. If the systems
were set the way they say.
Right. And that was during a time.
That was 1900. That was early 1900.
That's when there really was like systemic issues.
So she was born in the late 1800s, died in the mid 19 in the teens. I'm sorry.
Right.
And so she amassed a fortune.
Yeah.
A business, just crazy successful. But she wasn't the greatest or the first.
And that's the part I didn't know she wasn't the first.
Now, I had to look this up. I got it here. Mary Ellen Pleasant. Mary Ellen Pleasant. Back in the early 1800s, amassed a fortune of over $300 million. A former slave, educated herself. She has a quote where she said of herself, "I wonder what I could have done with an education."
What? Yeah, like imagine. That's amazing.
Investments in business, and she just took over. I mean, out there in San Francisco, she just made money hand over fist. Businesswoman in a place where supposedly blacks could not succeed, in a system where blacks were supposedly oppressed. Now she succeeded in spite of the oppression. This is what I'm trying. This is what makes America great. Is that even at a time where she was clearly oppressed, no vote. One, she's black. Two, she's female. No voting power. No formal education, and yet she rose to prominence. How? Because she was determined to do so. Another one that I looked up, I was surprised to find this out. There was a young man by the name of Mr. Jeremiah Hamilton. Jeremiah Hamilton amassed a fortune of over $2 million in 1887. This is shortly after slavery. A Wall Street trader, working on Wall Street. You know, he had pitched battles with the Vanderbilts. We all know who the Vanderbilts are, right? He had pitched battles with the Vanderbilts over properties. I mean, this guy was a businessman.
So he was up there doing the work.
Yes. You know, we're talking about in today's dollars, he probably would have been worth about $250 million. But in that day, a little over $2 million. But this was a black man in doing business in the 1880s. Rocking the business world, buying property in New York City, working property. Now, he did get a nickname. What was it? The black, they called him the, what was it? The Prince of Darkness, because not only was he a businessman, he made his money the way most people make money, is that
ripping people off,
when other people were selling, he was buying. So he bought property from people when they were oppressed or the dollar was oppressed. He went in and bought it up, and then when property value went up, he owned it all. The same way the Kennedys and the same way the Vanderbilts and the rest of these people did. You buy when everybody else is selling. When everybody else is panicking, you keep your head. In other words, he worked the business. Now, this is, like I said, this is not about America's perfection. This is about what makes America great, the potential for America being great.
What we call the American dream that a lot of people say is not achievable. I mean, it's so interesting because that's the narrative I heard constantly in school. Is that, you know, the American dream, or pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And we always talk about, like, no, you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So
you're still holding your bootstraps.
You know, so it's like, that is a stupid thing to say, right? But the American dream, as we've seen it, it's like, that only happens in America.
Only in America.
You don't see that.
You can't do this in India.
No.
You can't rise up through the caste system in
India.
India.
Like, literally, here, right now, I could just decide, you know, I'm going to start a business. And I can.
And do it.
Other countries,
no.
There's no regulations and, like...
I've done it. I've started businesses. I have a business that I've started. And it makes money. Okay. If I can do it, anybody can do it. That's what I'm trying to say. And so we look at this and we go... If we're in a country where America doesn't have this potential for greatness, none of these things would have been possible. I looked up all the black Americans who have held positions of power in government. I had to put the list down. The list was so vast, dating back to the end of slavery. We've had black senators, black representatives,
even black people that ran for the presidency. I think people forget that Shirley Chisholm. First black female, and she ran for the presidency
of these United States. And so you look at this, you go, in a nation where we're not great, that would not be possible. That would not be possible. I think of the sacrifices of people like Emmett Till, you know, who was assassinated there on his front porch in Mississippi for the right of the black man to vote. And I think the fact that we can now vote, and shame on us for those who don't vote, but the fact that we can vote is another sign of what makes America great. Because if we were a systemically racist nation, as the South was in the time that Emmett Till, not Emmett Till, Emmett Till was a young man, the little boy that was killed. This is, I can see his face. He was shot at his
The front door
of his home.
I remember. Yeah, I don't remember his name.
Oh,
we were talking about the other day. But.
Yes, I'm blanking on his name. I can see his face. But what makes it great, if you think about the time when they lived there, what happened is that the system didn't let them vote.
Right.
Because it was systemically racist.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing you find out is that all those people in the Klan, all those people in the court, all those people in the sheriff's department who would not let these black people vote were registered Democrats. And if you look at the historical pictures, you'll see the posters and everything.
That's the history
that people
don't talk about.
The Republican Party is dead in the South. The Republican Party, and it's like, yeah, that's a whole different story. But we see what makes America great is that now the same people, the sons of slaves, are now running government in places like Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia.
Well, that's what gets me. So you have the mayor of D.C., okay, get on TV talking about the oppression of black people and allowing the people to just paint Black Lives Matter and
with
defund the police
dollars
on the street.
With taxpayer
and
dollars.
I'm like, you are the mayor. And you're complaining. You're in a position of leadership.
And
I'm like, you're literally being interviewed on CNN, or whatever.
Make it right.
You know, I'm like, oh my goodness.
And this is another thing we don't talk about. This is another thing we don't talk about. Look at these great cities that have been destroyed. Look at these great cities that have been run into the ground. Look at their governmental structure. Democrat and hugely black. So all these positions of power, and I know this. I know this bites, guys, and I know it makes me sound like well, I would be privileged to be an Uncle Tom, but it makes me sound like what most people call Uncle Tomming. But the reality is that we are doing this.
Right.
We're doing this, and we have the ability to do better. Because when you think about these people I just read to you about here in history, they were operating in systems that was oppressive to them.
And they still rose to greatness.
Right. I think about Booker T. Washington, who goes down to Tuskegee, Alabama to start a university. And when he gets there, what does he find? Nothing.
He's like,
there's nothing there.
He was expecting a lot more. Like,
there was one little shack there. So what does he do? Does he quit and go home and cry on the system? What does he do? He starts educating people. And one of the first things he educates them on is how to grow food, how to build better houses. So they built the university.
How to be self-sustaining.
They learned how to be engineers, architects, plumbers. They learned those things. And they built Tuskegee Institute. Tuskegee, they built it. And then you think about being in the South in the 40s and all this junk that's going on. You have Dr. George Washington Carver in his little bitty room. And I got to see his room before they made it fancy. Because you go down there now, they have the museum attached to it. And when I was in 6th grade living in Selma, that was part of our tour. We got to go see that as a school tour. And we saw the room that he lived in. And it was New York City small, y'all. That's what I'm saying.
Like a closet?
It was New York City small.
It's one bedroom.
That's all he needed.
A closet.
But he, from that space, just multiple hundreds of discoveries and things
from the peanut.
I'm
like, man.
And then we think about coming out of that, the Tuskegee Airmen, the Red Tails. Oh, here are people who were told you're too stupid to do anything. But did they listen? Blacks came from all over America. Fought hard to petition just to get into the Tuskegee Airmen, the Red Tails. And then once they got there and they were commissioned as pilots, as officers in these United States Air Force, they were sent overseas to do battle. And they were not allowed to have their bivouac, their planes, or their barracks in the same place as white officers. But guess what happened? They began to go out on missions.
And then they realized, oh, you guys are good.
They began to go out on missions. And every plane they escorted came home. Now, a number of them lost their lives protecting them, but every plane that the Red Tails escorted came home. They also have the first, if not the only, recorded sinking of a battleship by an airplane, by a fighter jet. One of the Tuskegee Airmen sunk a battleship. Come on now. And you can sit here and tell me that we're not in a place to be great.
I know.
President Trump had one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen at the last address of the Union. And I was just ashamed to see our Democratic leaders refusing to even
I know,
stand for that
because,
historic
and
man.
it goes back to what Booker T. Washington said years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He said there is basically a class of people who really do not want black people to not be... what's
don't
the
want
word?
them to succeed.
Yeah, they don't want them. They want that. I forget the word he used.
Their business.
Basically, the burdens of the black man. They want to keep it there because that's their job.
Their burdens and victimization.
Yeah, and I know Thomas Sowell's talked about it. It's the race industry where we want a race war. We want to keep these things primary because you get people riled up and we can keep people subjugated and keep them basically buying the lie that I have the answer for you. And that's why when we go back, like we say, we were talking about this earlier, that in the United States, do we have a system of racism?
And the answer is no.
And the answer is no. In cities, ran with, unfortunately, Democratic leaders, in those inner cities, there are systemic issues there. Look at your leadership, and they keep it systemic.
Look at Baltimore. President Trump called Baltimore the cesspool that it is.
And people got mad.
And all these leaders got
is.
online complaining. And the same mayor who got online and called President Trump a liar had recently before that took a tour and looked at the city and talked about how nasty and dirty it was and how broken it was.
But because it came from Trump, they're like...
Trump said it now, is all of a sudden it's a lie. And so that's systemic.
That's systemic, but it's not the whole nation.
Elitism.
You know?
Elitism.
Yeah, you see pockets of it.
We have these few who are living high on the hog when the people they're supposed to be taking care of are suffering.
Here's what I'm excited about. So Trump had a roundtable the other day, and one thing he said is he's going to lobby before Congress again, telling them, hey, let's pick up school choice.
Right.
You know, especially for those inner cities. Because education, he said, it is one of our civil rights issues of today. Civil rights issues.
It's probably one of the major civil rights issues of today.
My brain's tired. Your brain's tired. But, you know, but I hear him saying stuff like that where I'm like, when I hear people I know and love say that we have a racist president and he's doing nothing good, and I'm like, you're not looking at what he's doing.
And when you ask the question, okay, what did he do that's racist? They cannot tell you.
Right. Well, they have ideas.
Oh, they'll say stuff like, oh, that thing he did in
the
South
Parkland
Carolina.
5, or... And
I'll just say to them, did you ever hear his entire speech in context?
Right.
And the answer is no.
Right.
So go back and you have to educate yourself is what I'm saying. Someone asked me again, so I consider President Obama being an example of American greatness. I would say absolutely yes.
The fact that you could
be elected as president, that proves the greatness of America. The fact that we had attorney generals who were black.
Right.
We've had chief surgeon generals of the nation black. Almost every major office in this nation has been filled with and by blacks.
And you know what I love too, and I think this is something that's so important to remember, is this nation was founded on Judeo-Christian values, okay?
Absolutely.
Were the founding fathers all perfect Christians? No.
The principles were perfect. They were not perfect.
You look at the people, there were things that they did. Some of them were they were racist, and you're like, oh, guys, come on. You had great material. What are you doing, right?
Yep.
And that was not great.
Right.
But the founding was great. And the principles it was built on were great. And throughout America's history, and this is why America is great, throughout the history, you can see people who have appealed to those values, and greatness has come from it. Martin Luther King Jr., that I recently read again his letter from the Birmingham jail, and I was like, man, this is amazing because he wrote it from jail.
Mind of a genius,
and it is so like profound.
Well, all of his references cited from memory.
Yes,
just phenomenal.
You need to read it before it's taken offline, because it probably will be. But in it, you know, he's appealing to truth, and even he said, he's like, the moral law. He said God's law, and he's going back, and I was like, it's this. This is what makes America great. That foundation we can appeal to.
Even in that, he says the black man in America must not allow himself to sink to the level of violence and depravity, of thievery, and all these things that we're still going on now. These are the things he says
even
we
the
must
church,
avoid.
He even tells the church. He appealed to the church.
And I call the church out on this too, is that our problem here, and we call ourselves Christians, and we're preaching another gospel. Paul said in the book of Galatians, right, there is no other gospel.
Right.
Whether I or an angel from heaven comes to you with a different gospel, let him be accursed, let him be anathema.
Right.
So when you start talking to me about the black gospel, we ain't trying to hear it.
Social gospel,
we start
whatever
talking about
gospel.
The social gospel, I ain't trying to hear it. You talking about the transgender gospel? I'm not trying to hear it. You see what I'm saying? There's the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Right.
So if you want a different belief system, You have the liberty of doing that. I'm not going to sit here and beat you over the head and say, no, you got it. No, that's not part of my belief system. But when you say you are a Christian, you have limited yourself to a Judeo-Christian worldview. And that's what the church in America has not done. And that's what the Christians, and when I say the church, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about an organization. I'm talking about individuals. You have to stand up. When you're talking to your friends, they're asking you about racism, appeal to the gospel. The
moral law. And that's what MLK said in the letter. He said, we have a law, a standard, the high standard, the moral law. And he even said this, he's like, every good law and every just law, he's like, I know it's good and just because it's in agreement with
the moral
law, God's law. And I think another thing that makes America great
on,
is that this is, I think, one of the only nations where we do have the freedom to exercise our faith.
Yes.
You don't have to be a Christian in the United States of America.
No.
You know?
No.
You don't have to. But what they're creating right now, and I think this is why we talk about the battle for America, like legitimately, is because it's a battle for the foundation of America. Yes. And I get in so many different arguments with people about Black Lives Matter. And again, you can be pro-Black and not support the movement of Black Lives Matter because they're very questionable. And if you look at what they stand for, it's not...
As a Christian, I don't think you can support
As a Christian, you can't.
Not as an organization.
And
because their platform is anti-Christian.
And I would go this step, too, saying, if you love America, you can't support Black Lives Matter because they support the breaking down and restructuring of America.
And this again represents the beauty. And really, it's one of the things that make America great is that we do have, within the confines of law, if enough of us decide,
we could
legally change the nature of America.
And you're right, that makes it great.
But what we're seeing here now is not being done legally. No. It's not being done within the structure of law. It's been done by force. It's been rammed down people's throats through half-truths and lies
Canceling
and innuendos.
Things
I heard someone today that somebody was talking about they were going to take the police dog off of
Paw Patrol. I'm like, leave Paw Patrol alone,
take
please.
The police dog off of Paw Patrol.
And Sesame Street.
How ridiculous is that?
I'm like, stop brainwashing children. Like, oh my word. On Sesame Street, Elmo, has a little friend on. And his friend said, I'm going to bring this poster to the protest. And then Elmo says, why do they look so sad? And his friend says, because people of color and Black people in particular are mistreated here. And I'm like, you can't even protect your kids. Well, don't watch TV, I guess.
I'm talking about, again, what makes America great are the same tools that the enemies of America use to weaken America.
Because we have the freedom to express ourselves. Yep. Man,
I was watching this video the other day where this girl was interviewing these protesters about how many Black men
I said that to
were
you.
shot and killed by police officers within the last year. And people are guessing,
tens of thousands.
And
dozens of thousands, one guy said.
And finally she tells them there were 9. And they're like, well, when you quote facts like that, that just proves that you're using white privilege. What does facts have to do with white privilege? There was 9 people shot. 9 people killed. Unarmed Black people that were killed. Now, we're not discussing whether or not they were legitimately killed. We don't know. I'm not even talking about the cases. I'm just saying.
But it wasn't tens of thousands.
This is part of the misleading of America. Is that they show the same videos over and over and over and over and talk about it 24/7, so that people begin to believe that there's been this hundreds of Black people shot and killed, and you're like, it's just not true.
And that's why we go back to
now. Before anybody gets mad, George Floyd was murdered, and his killer should be sent to prison,
and he is in jail right now.
Period. The 3 other cops who were with him should also be taken and given their day in court, because I believe they too were negligent. That's my belief. I believe they were negligent. However, that does not change the facts that over the last calendar year there was only 9 Black people shot and killed by police officers. 9. Okay, so it's not all these guys that are out there, and that's not questioning whether or not these people were committing a crime at the time. That's not questioning whether or not they were shot and killed as they were trying to kill somebody else. None of that comes in. We're just talking about flat numbers. So again, when you put that up against the fact, like I said, in the one weekend in Detroit, there was 63 shootings and 23 people killed.
Since then, recently.
I'm talking about that one weekend that
but just a couple weekends ago, it said there was, I think it was 97 shootings.
97 shootings.
And I think only 20-something were killed. But I was like, what,
20-something killed
in
90,
a week? It was like
In a week.
It blew my mind. Like, how is that possible over a weekend? 90 shootings.
The majority of those people who shot and killed were black, and the majority of people who shot and killed them were black. So you got blacks killing blacks. And I was listening to a pastor from Alabama, my hometown, was talking today. I was watching him online, and he was saying, it stands to reason in a black community you're going to have more black on black crime, and that's a fact. That's one of those simple facts that even though it is a fact that when you look at it on the larger platform, we shy away from it. And that's the problem.
Right.
The problem in the black community is not the cops coming in and killing everybody. The problem in the black community is the blacks in the community. We have to fix our own problems. And so until we're willing to fix our own problems, all the potential of American greatness does us no good.
Sunny Johnson, she has a radio show on Sirius XM. I think it's called Sunny's Corner. But she was one of the ladies that went to the round table with President Trump.
Right.
And then following it, she's been getting a lot of like people saying, thank you for what you said. She was really loud and passionate, but she was saying good things just about like fixing some communities. But anyways, on Twitter, a lot of people, I've seen conversations that she's having with people, and one of the conversations was basically saying that, you know, they came from a family of generational and systemic issues, and poverty and all these things. And then Sunny got on and said, you know, yeah, same here. And me and my daughter's father decided that our child would not have the same problems that we had.
Right.
And all these other people are like, yep, same here, same here, same here. And I'm like, that's what makes America great. They had the choice to be like, yeah, we're going to stop this thing. I'm not going to raise my child in this drug-infested area. I'm going to do something different for my kid. I'm going to change my behavior. We're going to change the culture of our family.
Because I look at...
And that's what they did. And you can see, and all these people are getting on and be like, yep, me too. I was like, they changed their family culture.
The real Me Too movement.
The real Me Too. Like,
I look at our family, and I often talk about this. You know, one of the greatest men in my life was my Uncle Silas. He's going to be with the Lord now. But I watched him, and I last my home. I watched him, you know, up close, and I watched him from afar. Not a perfect man. Nobody is. But how he loved his wife, how he loved his children, he loved his family, and how he strove hard to the extremes of his ability to provide.
Right.
And this man went from walking halfway across the world, working 3 jobs at a time, just to make sure that his wife and children had food and a place to sleep. You know, to owning his own business, to own his being a reputable man, a great name in the community of Burrell's Garage there in Birmingham, Alabama. Just a phenomenal man. And then watching his children, you know, he had 7 kids, and watching his children succeed. All of them successful people. All of them successful people. I watched my own mother, you know, 5 children, and watch all 5 of her children grow up and strive in that same lesson to be better than the generation before.
Right.
And I look at us and I think, wow, my family got it. That, yeah, we came from humble backgrounds, and there's some stuff in our family background we look at, we go, we don't want to talk about that. But there's some, but you know what? Happened, right? But we got to the point where we say, hey, you're going to be better than I was.
Yeah.
You're going to go further than I did.
And the thing is, I think this is people kind of get confused, at least with through all the narrative and the junk and propaganda we see in the media, is that what makes America great is that in this nation, you can decide, hey, I'm going to make it better.
You have the potential.
You have the potential, you know, because there really isn't, the government's not really keeping you down.
The government's not, it's not really to take care of you.
It's not to take care of
No.
you. There's some people in leadership who want it to be that way. You know, AOC, they want the government to take care of you.
What was the girl's name? The actress, she played in Precious, played the mother in Precious. What was her name?
Oh, yes.
I can see
Monique. Yeah, I was like, it's coming.
I was watching a documentary, an interview that she was doing, talking about her rise to fame and the things she had to overcome. And she's talking about her husband, who is now the father of her children, and the fact that she's doing it right now. She's got her husband who loves her, and they're taking care of it. And I hope they're still together, because I don't follow them personally. I don't know them personally, I mean, but I pray that they're doing well. But she said in one interview that the manager was telling she and her husband, who was her manager, well, you can just relax. I'll take care of you guys.
Because they're asking questions like, you don't need to worry about that. Yeah.
And her husband sat up and looked. And Monique, if you by any chance listen to this, props to you and your husband. But he said to them, oh, well, tell me what man taking care of you and your family. And the guy looks at him like, what? Well, you gonna take care of me and my family. Tell me what man is taking care of you and your family. So how? So I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. That's what makes the difference. When you're sitting back and waiting for some man or some system or some guy to take care of you, it's like, are you a baby?
Right.
Are you still wearing diapers? Why are you waiting for somebody to take care of you? Get up, go to work. And if you don't know something, get online and learn how to do it. Do something.
Do something. And you have the ability to do something.
If we in the black community would just say to ourselves, you know what? We're going to be better. I'm going to open my own mechanic shop in my community. You know what? And
well,
here's
the thing. Here's the thing. I know...
cabinets, carpentry, cement.
The black community. Work. The black community. Yes. We say that. I've heard several people say... It's not really a community anymore, okay? We say that, but it's really not. Because when people talk about black people, they have an image, and they're talking about the inner city.
Right.
Issues in the inner city are not the same here where we live, okay?
It's like the same where my mom lives.
It's not the same where she lives. So when we talk about the black experience, which one?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So even that conversation...
Black experience says.
Yeah, because I was like, it's so different. And so when we're talking, a lot of these issues are talking about, even what Trump's talking about, he's talking about combating issues in the inner city. Because that's where they're hurting the most. That's where you have that's where you have the Democratic leadership who's crushing their people.
Sucking the life out of them.
And so we even talk about that. It's like there's different issues around everywhere. We try to conflate it to be like the black experience.
But we've seen how different communities have gone in and made that difference.
Yeah.
The Jewish community is an excellent example of that.
Great example.
The Asian community is great examples of that. We're like, you know what? Yeah, the Asians...
They're keeping us down, but we're going to change. So it's like cultural change.
They came here and they was just a little bit above slaves when they came here, working on the railroad and doing all those things that they had to do just to get by.
Right.
And they weren't, and they had their part they don't want to talk about too. So, but they rose up. You see what I'm saying?
That's what it goes back to. It's that mind change, heart change.
You have to decide.
And deciding, I'm going to change the culture of my family.
Here's the potential I have. Okay, we're running out of time. So I want to get to this list of things. I want to go through them just kind of bullet point. I'll give you one and you give me one. Of things that you think made America great and has given us potential. I mean, since you're a young lady, ladies first.
Well, the first ones we already talked about.
Just give me a list. We're gonna go through
Abe Lincoln.
Abe Lincoln. I'm gonna say the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yeah.
give me something else that made America great.
Declaration of Independence.
How about the abolition, the actual abolition of slavery as a trade in this country? What else? Come on, give me another one.
It was great. My brain's slow because we're doing bullet point. Just like the firing. I'm really bad at going fast.
Come on, give me another. The potential for any person in America to become a millionaire. Any person
that really is
to become
great.
A millionaire. You can start a business sitting in your backyard
right now.
How about this?
Honestly, it comes with a lot of baggage, but even the internet, where now people, any background, can like start your own like YouTube channel, for crying out loud.
Give me something else. I say the space race. Come on.
Oh, space race.
Something that made America great. Got ahead of the Russians in the space race. Gave us that leg up there. Winning World War II.
Oh, there's that.
And stopping that bad guys.
Totalitarianism.
Yes. Stopping Hitler. Stopping the Emperor of Japan from spreading that evil around us. Stopping Mussolini from spreading it out there. Give me some other things that America did that's been great. So y'all need to catch up on this.
I know.
Fact that Malcolm X can come out of prison and become an international spokesperson. America allowed that to happen. Dr. King coming up in Montgomery, Alabama, leading this organization, this movement that has changed the face of the world. Who that said? Wait, Biden said today that the death of Martin Luther King did not have the impact that George Floyd. You ought to stop it, Biden. I'm black and I'm not voting for you. Just want to say that. But, I mean, we go on and on. The fact that we elected Barack Obama as the president of the United States, arguably,
you should give me more prep time. I could have made a list, but I don't think quick on the spot.
The most powerful man in the world at that time, Barack Obama, a black man.
Right.
Talk to me about. Tell me that America don't have any greatness in it.
How about the Apollo, for crying out loud? And I just look at all the musicians. We watched the documentary. It's really good on HBO. I mean, there's some stupid stuff in it, but overall,
Get
really
away from
good.
the political correctness and just the history.
And just the history
the richness of it.
And people who really did rise up. And
the brother who wrote, what was that song? Oh, God, we were talking about it. The one you were playing the other day on the piano. Misty.
Earl Garner, is that talking about?
Beautiful music. Beautiful. What makes America great again? The ability for a young black family grow up in Gary, Indiana, to become the Jacksons. That's what makes America great. That's what makes America great. The fact that young, skinny black kid living up in Cleveland can now become LeBron James.
Right.
That's what makes America great again. You see, it's the potential for greatness.
It is the potential for greatness. And I think I want to bring it back to this because this is what really makes America great.
Talk to me.
And it's being erased. Because we can focus on all those things.
Oh, you're going to go to the foundation, aren't you?
Well, yeah, because you can focus on like, the Apollo musicians, and there's a lot of nasty stuff that happened there too.
Talk to me.
But what makes America great...
Come on, say it. Say it. Call his name. Jesus.
What I'm going to say is, what makes it great is that foundation. Because, and I said this earlier, and I hope I made that point clear, is that throughout our country's history, and there's been great evils that came out of America too, but in the face of that evil, there has been greatness, and it's always been combated with truth. Even right now, one of the biggest evils that's coming out of our nation at crazy numbers is the sin of abortion. But people are standing against it, and what they're appealing to is truth, is the moral law. And that's what's going to fight it. Right.
Without just cause.
And so throughout our nation's history... You can get that upset
about George Floyd being murdered. How can you not be upset about 70 million babies being murdered?
Yeah.
How can you not? I don't understand.
But the answer again is always going back to Jesus. It goes back to the foundation, that moral law. And even honestly, because there's people a part of the pro-life movement who aren't Christian,
right?
But they also appeal to it's the moral law human beings are. We have what's the word they use?
Not empathy.
Not empathy, but we have being human. I forget the word. A conscience. Appealing to that. Even there's even people who are not Christian who recognize that there's something special about humans. We shouldn't murder them, right?
Yes.
And so even there's people who are
when you do, it's wrong.
And it's
not that people don't do it. You just know it's wrong.
Right. But that's what makes America great. And that's why I get so infuriated. Let me just finish my statement real quick, please.
Please. I want to hear it.
Are you sure?
We all get passionate about this. You get passionate
but
what really... Cut me off. Go ahead.
What really... I forgot it. Thanks, Dad. You always do that to me.
No. You did it to me.
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
No.
This guy still love you, though.
It was a good point, too.
I tell you what. As I give you my point, you come back to yours. For all those right now in this country who are Trump haters, for whatever reason, maybe they don't hate him, they don't like him. We have a system in place to remove him. Yeah. That makes America great. If they can't, even if they can't vote him out of office, he can only be in office another 4 years.
It's true.
We automatically get rid of bad people, don't we? Except for Congress, they stay there forever.
That's what I'm saying. That's when we talk about draining the swamp.
That needs to be fixed.
There are problems.
That needs to be fixed. Well, I do apologize for you squeezing that thought out of your head. We do that. We get to talking. Sometimes we do that to each other. I'm sorry. But it's only because we're so passionate about what we're talking about.
I just don't remember. It was a really good point, but I forget.
But we make America great. So there's a lot of good points. That segment's got a little longer than I thought we would. But I just wanted to talk about this. People are always asking, when was America ever great? And you sit there and say to them, seriously, you asking me that question? You have the freedom to ask me that question, and you don't see what made America great. Right. The fact that you can sit here and disagree, you can get online right now.
Well, and the fact that's what makes me laugh so much. I'm like, oh my gosh, the fact that I don't think other places you see this just vitriol towards their own nation to the extreme. Like there are these young people going to college who hate America, willing to burn a flag, flipping off leadership, and I'm like, you have the freedom to do that. Like, wow. Yeah. Wow.
Only in a free nation.
Nation can you do that without being imprisoned. Of places
where you can't go do that.
You would be killed. You would be imprisoned.
These people talking about they want to get rid of the police. I'm gonna tell you guys right now. I'm gonna put this out there. The powers that be have no intention of getting rid of the police at all.
Definitely not.
What they want to do, is to convert the police. They need the same thing that Hitler had with his brown shirts. The same thing that Mussolini had with his black shirts. That's what they need. And as long as they have a free police department who's armed and can stand against them, they cannot have their way. So they need to change it. And that's what this is about. It has nothing to do with getting rid of police. Don't be deceived for a moment. The elite need their armed guard. Look at history. Go back. Where do you think Robin Hood came from?
It's cliche, but it really is. Those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it.
Just because it's cliche don't mean it's not
And
true.
That's why I think when we see all these historical things being torn down.
Trying to rewrite history.
It's like, ooh, and the burning of things. I'm like, stop. Yeah. You're destroying history. And if we don't have it, if we can't see, like even the different There's different statues of like Confederate leaders. Okay.
It's
that
still
people
history.
want to tear down because they feel like it's racist. But I was like, you know what? I kind of like the statue. Here's why.
It's history.
Because it's history, and if we tear it down, we're going to forget it.
Yes.
I was like, let's leave that ugly thing so we can see it and remember, hey, let's not do that again.
Let's not ever do that again.
Let's not do that again.
Let's
but if it's not there, we're not going to think about it.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it
It's
again.
like the Edmund Pettus Bridge in my hometown. The bridge, the famous bridge you marched over going. Edmund Pettus was a grand wizard of the KKK. And there's been this great movie want to change the name of the bridge. Leave the name of the bridge alone. Because you know what? We walked over that bridge.
Right.
Even the grand wizard of the KKK couldn't stop justice from happening. Leave it.
Yeah, because right now,
show what it
and
is.
I think right now that's why I think people need to really use your voice, because they're changing names of everything. There's bands changing their name because like, oh, we realized our name is kind of racist. You know, there's restaurants changing the name, all this stuff.
Stop
and it's like,
stop it. Let's be grown-ups, okay?
Yeah.
Let's be grown-ups.
Let's be grown-ups.
We can discuss our differences and walk away from the table without hating each other. Mm-hmm. We can do it. I can disagree with you, and we can still be friends.
We can. And yes, there will be racists in the world. There always will be, because people are evil of all colors. There's racists of all colors.
Yes.
But the way you combat it is with truth. There is one truth.
Justice. And not the American way.
And it is scripture, you know, and not these other things that are coming up and
No.
invading the church. It's nah.
Let's keep it real.
So
the key to all of this, as with all things, is get behind the why. Mm-hmm. When people start telling you stuff, ask yourself, why? Mm-hmm. Why should I do this? What are you going to get out of me doing this? What's the benefit to you? Because like I said, when we look at all the history of what's been going on with this riotous action, it has not left the black man or America in a better place. Every time we bleed, we hurt. Mm-hmm. We're not fixing our problems. We're adding to it.
Yep.
So take the time, educate yourself, get online, download a letter from Birmingham jail, download the full context of the I Have a Dream speech, listen to Malcolm X in the full context. But more important than anything else, if you are a child of God, read your Bible. Read your Bible and obey God. Mm-hmm. Your feelings do not trump, like that Trump, the truth of the gospel. All right, until next time, you guys stay real, all right? Love you. Peace.
Peace.
God bless you. We're out.